Hello, folks. How's everybody doing? Hope y'all are doing great. Happy Wednesday, halfway through the week. Time to get after it. I know that one of my biggest pet peeves is when companies or programs have like a win Wednesday. It's the stupidest idea. You should be winning every single day. We talk about it in UCM. We celebrate it every single day. You should never let one day go by where you are not moving towards your goals, getting one step closer. So I hope that you're not just celebrating Win Wednesday, but wins every single day. As always, I appreciate you so much. If you are watching this live, give me a hashtag live. If you're watching this on the replay, I also appreciate you taking the time. I know you're probably busy killing it. So hashtag replay. And also let me know if you are an SDR, a setter, a closer, going to clown college, whatever, wherever you're at, if you're just transitioning in, if you're looking for more information and you don't even know what we're talking about, let me know in the comments. It really helps me figure out what we need to talk about so we can give as much value as possible. All right, we got some hashtag lives coming in. I love it. I appreciate you guys taking the time. So, this is a topic near and dear to my heart. It's long overdue. I wanted to create a genuine selling series because I've gotten a lot of pushback that the only reason I can be genuine or sell without a script or a sales process is because I've been doing this for so long. It's my 17-year career. When really, like, there's a lot of our students that have done it, and also a lot of the trainers in the space. I know they seem like on this pedestal, but a lot of them haven't been around that long, and they're developing their own natural way of selling. So the idea is not that you just wing it. It's not that there's not a structure or a framework. It's not that, you're just chatting and there's no direction to the conversation. It's just creating a genuine experience where two people can come together and exchange information and connect. And if we do that, there's still going to be a structure, there's still going to be a flow, but we just need to understand the why. The why is so important in a world where everybody is looking for the what and the when. What do I say? When do I say it? I'm obsessed with the why, and that's allowed me to have a pretty interesting career. Over my 17-year career, I've had the honor of exploring lots of different industries, lots of different roles, lots of different companies. For anybody that doesn't know, I've had 47 different jobs. Kind of crazy to think about. I'm only 35 going on 36. Right? So a lot, both physical location and remote sales. I've worked for giant corporations and oil and gas. I worked for Xerox, and I've started with little startups that were, day one. I've went door to door. I've done cold calling. I've done account management. I've done territory management. I've been an SDR, a setter, a closer, a team lead, a manager, a trainer, a director of strategy and sales and business development, and also a recruiter and a business owner, mentor, coach. It's a long list, a long, long list. I could go on forever. I also worked in a jail, all kinds of stuff, but I won't get into that. Someday, if you're interested of all the jobs that I've worked, hit me up and we'll talk about it. But in that time, I've had the honor of listening to thousands and thousands of call recordings. And one thing that I've known to be consistent, and it becomes a real problem that no one ever talks about because it's kind of sticky and again, people are just craving, like, tell me what to say. But it's a topic that's costing you the depth of your conversation. And it's also costing you the receptivity, right? It creates resistance. And that is a lack of smooth conversational transitions. It just does. It costs you money, opportunities, depth, connection, right? When you look around in our industry, what are sales trainers making a killing off of? Selling sales training to remove sales resistance. Now, the crazy thing about that is a lot of the times it's their frameworks and their scripts and their way of selling that actually creates the resistance. So amazingly enough, they're teaching you how to create resistance and then hopefully how to remove it. Mind blowing. But anytime that you have a linear sales approach, you're very likely to create resistance because humans are not linear. Human conversation is usually not linear. When was the last time that you had a conversation with your friend and they started off the conversation by asking you, Ted, what's the biggest challenge you're facing right now? It just doesn't happen. We don't talk like that. So then all of a sudden, just by following that linear progress, then all of a sudden you become the salesperson. And just like the job of a great actor is to get lost. When Denzel, I never think of Denzel as Denzel, right? When he's in a movie, I think of the character, right? Whether it's Robert Downey Jr. or whoever, right? I want to get lost in the character. I want to forget that I'm watching a movie. I want to forget that these are all actors. And it's the same thing when I'm on a sales call. Like, I want to get lost in the conversation. I want to forget that this person thinks I'm a KPI. Honestly, I don't want them to even think that, but I want to get lost in being able to have that conversation. I want to know that the person is actually connected to the things I'm saying and that they're not only just saying things to get me to move to the next direction so they can kind of trap me or convince me or persuade me, right? So when you think of it, like, when was the last time your parents or your spouse asked you what you're working on and then immediately asked you, well, what happens if you don't complete that in time? This consequence question stuff. It's just unnatural. That's not how humans interact. And that's not how anybody wants to have a conversation. That's how salespeople interact. And so I have a principle that has served me throughout my career, and it's very simple. If it doesn't resemble real life, I don't use it in this space. So the frameworks are fine, right? Especially early on, right? When you're starting a new campaign and you're onboarding and you're trying to figure everything out, yes, it's normal to say, okay, this is what I need to say while I'm developing, right? While you're figuring it out. But you should be focused on quickly getting to the point where you're having genuine interactions with the prospect based on their reactions to you and your reactions to them, right? This obsession with removing resistance is annoying and a bit ridiculous. And for everybody in the chat that's asking about UCM, I believe that it is in the free group and it's also in UCM. I got StreamYard happening now. I'm up on tech. So let me know if anybody is watching this from the free group. It's supposed to be in both. Anybody watching from the free group? Just let me know. Just type in free group if you're watching there. But it is supposed to be in both. I'm just getting distracted by the chat. Anyways, I'm going to keep going, and hopefully this is in the, all right, beautiful. It's in the free group. It worked. I'm just not used to my tech skills. Okay, so this idea and obsession with removing resistance drives me crazy. Because the idea of it is, if you're removing resistance, you're removing one negative, right? So let's say you're at -1 and you add 1. You're at 0. What does that leave you with? It leaves you with nothing. Our goal should not be to remove resistance. Removing a negative does not make a positive. For me, the goal of removing resistance does not excite me. Instead, my goal, my focus, is always to add receptivity. That's what we really want. We don't want to remove negative. We want to add positive. Right? We talk a lot in UCM about negative goal setting, like, I don't want to look stupid, I don't want to go broke, I don't want to get fired, I don't want to burn bridges. All of those are negative goals, and they're more likely to spark the dopamine receptors in your brain to evaluate risk. We want to move towards reward. So we shouldn't be adding this goal of removing resistance. What we should do is trying to create receptivity. I don't set negative goals. I want to create a positive experience. So for the first session in Genuine Selling Series, I wanted to discuss transitions. Now, I believe personally that transitions are one of the most overlooked aspects on a sales call, And they're overlooked because every single trainer teaches you section-based selling. You have a rapport section, and you have a question section, and then you have a consequence section, then you have a pitch section, and a close section, and an objection handling section. Not only is it boring, but having sections is unnecessary and very unnatural. Again, going back to that example, imagine meeting up with your best friend, and in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, so for the first 5 minutes, I need to focus on building rapport. It's absolutely ridiculous. Right? A great conversation is something that sections don't allow for, which is flow. There's a natural flow to the conversation. If you have sections, I always kind of compare it to like, driving a manual and someone grinds the gears. When I hear those conversations and I can identify what section they're going to next, it just feels horrible. It sounds horrible when I'm listening to it, right? And so section-based selling is extremely clunky, and it makes it so the prospect is always aware and reminded that this is a sales call and that you represent the yes. About a week or two ago, I went on a UCM advanced selling call, and I talked about how really objections shouldn't exist, because the idea of an objection really means they object to your idea, which means you represent the yes. So they're representing the no. Your job should never be to represent the yes, right? My aim on a sales call is to represent the facilitation of the best decision possible, whether that is a yes or no. My job is to organize the information. My job may be to educate. My job may be to dig and, organize some information or drop in some problems or, whatever it is to facilitate the best decision possible. So if they're objecting to the best decision possible or to me facilitating, then we don't have to have the call, right? But if I represent the yes, then they can have an objection, then it's a win or lose scenario, and the prospect always has the veto power. We can have the best call, we can make the most logical argument of why they should buy, and they can always be like, meh, no, for no reason. So we should never represent the yes. We should represent them having a positive experience or an impactful experience, and our goal should be for them to feel certain in their decision whether or not that's a yes or a no. Now, the underlying problem with that, which most people don't talk about, is offer selection. If you choose the right offer, then you're going to be in a position where you can have great conversations and you're not worried about the number of sales because the company is doing the proper marketing, they have great fulfillment, they're facilitating their job. The problem that most people get is they take the wrong offer, then they feel pressure because the sales manager is coming down on them for KPIs, and they don't have enough opportunities or enough people to get them to say yes to make their earning potential. So this doesn't just start on the conversation, this actually starts in the offer you choose. When I was working for Amazon and selling Amazon coaching, I knew that 66% of the people were going to be a no. I had a 34% close rate, and I was very happy with that. I didn't stay up all night thinking about, I wonder why I didn't sell these people, because they weren't the right fit. And I could do that naturally and still make $40,000 a month, right? So all of this starts in selecting an ethical offer that you feel good about, where the majority of people, yes, is a great decision, right? So I want to create a positive experience. I want them to feel certain about a yes or a no, and I want them to feel that I am unbiasedly giving them information to allow them to make the best decision possible. That's the start, right? The learn how to close everyone training style is egotistical, and I think it's slowly, or I hope it's slowly rotting. It's a big reason why most coaching programs have such a low success rate, is because trainers are teaching students how to convince and manipulate, but they package it up as persuasion, right? A lot of times when they say persuasion, what they mean is convincing, and convincing is another word for manipulation in some ways, right? So to me, it's just hollow KPI. Selling someone who doesn't need it or doesn't want it because you're great with words, that means nothing, right? These are real people on the other side of the call. They're not your just commission checks and KPIs. They're someone's mom and dad or brother and sister or son and daughter, and they deserve to be treated as a human, right? Sell as if you're like, the way I think about it is like, who do you love more than anybody on this planet? Sell to someone like you would want them to sell to that person, right? Make that connection, because that is someone's favorite person on the planet. Just because we don't know them and just because we have the pressure of KPIs doesn't mean that we should forget that, right? So I think one of the deep problems here is most people treat sales as their craft. They want to get good at sales. They want to learn sales. They want to train at sales. And that's why they sound, look, and feel so transactional. We can pick them out, right? When you really think about what's happening here, communication is our craft. If we spent more time dedicated to mastering communication and less time to mastering sales, we would develop a better reputation overall in the industry, right? People would be more receptive to us. And also, all of this would translate over to interviews, to networking, to relationships, right? To interactions, right? So the reason why so many people go through sales training and can't get a job is because they never learn to communicate. So there's no transferable skills. They only know what to say, when the prospect says this, and everything goes exactly their way. So then they reach out to me or an interviewer, and they don't have any idea how to communicate properly, right? Conversations are an art form. A great conversation is a thing of beauty. It's very much like a dance. There needs to be someone who leads. And so in our space, I call this conversational leadership. You have influence over the direction of the conversation. Now, most salespeople are stiff and rigid, and they have certain time frames. And this person, like, one of the tells is when I get the question of like, how do I get the prospect to shut up? That tells me that you are just in that KPI chasing mindset and that you're rigid. I love when people are talking and giving me those examples, and I get to see where their mind goes, and then I can lead the dance, right? So natural transitions allow the conversation to flow without the boring predictability of, what challenges are you facing? Oh, okay, what are your 3 to 6 month goals? And what happens if you don't hit those goals? And why is now a good time to move forward? Right? We've all heard it before. It's boring. It's boring, and people are getting used to it, right? And we wouldn't have to create a new way of selling every couple months and have to upsell and buy a new program if we just learn how to communicate. The form of communication and influence, we can add our own genuine style to that, and it becomes effective, and it never goes out of style. It never becomes less effective because 40,000 people aren't saying the exact same words, right? They're not saying the blanket automatic statement at the end of every fucking discovery session. Okay, Fred, based on everything you've told me, I'm 100% we can help you. I'm 100% confident we can help you. No matter if you're 5% or 100%. It's inauthentic, it's boring, it's predictable, and a lot of times it's just not true. I'm sure there's a lot of people here listening who have told or been told to say you're 100% confident, but sometimes you're just not. So you shouldn't say something if you don't believe it, right? This is linear persuasion selling. And in my humble opinion, it sucks. It sucks. That's why we have the reputation we do. Genuine selling is more of a dance. You can go forward, you can go backwards, you can go side to side. The idea here is not to get from the starting point to the destination. Rather, it's about coverage and depth, right? And so I want to cover 3 different types of transitions that you can use to make the conversations more seamless and more conversational. So we have the forward transition, which we call a segue, right? Segueing into the next idea. We have the side to side, which is a side note or a sidebar. And we have the backwards transition, which is backtracking. Right? So starting with the forward transition, because that's going to be the one easiest to implement and something that we need to put in right away. A forward transition should be used to move between sections or new ideas. It's kind of like a milestone or an introduction of a new chapter in a book or conversation. Right? So there's always two tools that we have available to us when making a transition, which can be used individually or in combination. And this is really in every conversation. We really have two. We have, I can make a statement or I can ask a question. That's it. Right? When you understand that those are really the only two tools that you have in a sales conversation, all of a sudden you can start to develop knowing that, okay, I can either make a statement on that, or I can ask a question, or I can combine those two. Right? So a couple examples of a segue statement transition. I could say something like, I'm actually glad you mentioned that transition into my next. Or, by the way, or that actually reminds me. Or it's interesting you say that because. Right? Or, for example, or to illustrate my last point. One thing I've noticed, correct me if I'm wrong, but, or it's funny you mentioned that. I was actually talking to one of our students today, and they said, like, these are natural. They come up in conversation. This is how we talk to each other. So why would they be missing from a sales conversation? If I'm talking to my friend and they say something, I'm like, that actually reminds me. That's the natural flow of conversations. So these statements keep the dance moving forward and create a smoothness that keeps your prospect engaged. So they don't feel like, oh, that was the discovery section, and now here's the pitch section. So an example of a question segue could be, can I actually give you some feedback on that? Or are you open to a suggestion? Or, can I ask you an honest question? All of these are going to segue and allow you to take the conversation to the next point, right? Or would you like me to, or should we? So for example, I might say something like, would you like me to share what this might look like for you personally? Or should we go over some of the options that you have available to you in this moment? Should we start playing the pros and cons of, what's going to be the best decision for you moving forward? Asking for permission is a great opportunity to segue into the next aspect of the conversation. Right? So there's also what we call confirmation transitions. And so these are things like, basically, I guess the best way I could explain it is a confirmation transition or a confirmation segue is a great idea it's a great way to introduce ideas that you need the prospect to understand or agree with to be able to move to the next aspect of the conversation. So I'm going to use a couple examples, right? If I'm talking to someone, I might say, I'm sure I don't have to tell you that there's a lot of online marketers out here that are promising one thing and delivering the next, right? I need people to understand and commit to that we both feel that that's true, to be able to move on to my next point, right? I might also drop something else like, you've been doing this a long time. Tell me, what have you seen change, right? You've been doing this a long time creates that awareness that they've seen changes, right? So that's a confirmation. Maybe a commitment or connection confirmation transition might be, as well as I do. As well as I do, no one succeeds without hard work. That everybody wants to make money, but very few people do. Right? That's my commitment. That's the exchange. Right? You and I both know this thing, so now let's transition to the next. Right? Another great one is character confirmation. So what I mean by that is maybe you need them to feel confident or you need them to realize in that moment who they are. So you might say, you seem like a knowledgeable person, or you seem like a confident person. You seem like a great communicator. Why are you struggling to get a job? You seem great at what you do. Why do you think it is that you're not getting consistent lead flow? You seem like a person that produces great results. Whatever it is that you need them to feel, And also, there's kind of a double-edged sword to that. You're also recognizing people. You're also validating them. It's a great opportunity to plant a seed. And what you're doing subconsciously is you're telling them, I see you. I have identified you as someone that has these positive characteristics. And at the end of the day, no matter who you're talking to, no matter how difficult they seem, or whether they're giving you information or not, everybody wants to be seen, everybody wants to be understood, and everybody wants to be validated. Right? So confirmation segues are they're great to use when you're introducing that idea that you need the prospect to understand or agree to move to the next aspect of the conversation. So used in an example, just to kind of wrap that idea up, right? I might say, Julie, I mean, you seem to have your finger on the pulse and have a really good awareness of this industry. What have you noticed are some of the biggest differences between you and some of your competitors who may just be more successful in generating leads? I use the awareness of this industry to stimulate the ability to draw out more information. Julie is less likely to say, I don't know, because I planted the seed that she is aware and has her finger on the pulse of the industry. So I'm able to draw out more information instead of her feeling like, oh, I have to give the right answer, or is he going to use this answer against me to try and sell me or handle an objection, right? It draws out more natural information. Right? So now I want to talk about side notes. Side notes are extremely powerful because, again, they feel natural and they're spontaneous, mostly because they are. Conversations are usually not linear. So we often don't have a destination in mind, and we are inspired by the information that our partner in this dance is giving us. So sometimes we take the conversation off road. And so we can introduce words like, this might be a little bit off topic, or, just for my own curiosity, and then we can go off road, and then we have depth and width to the conversation. Side notes allow for a width of conversation to be able to get more information out, but also the emotions and the hidden meanings behind it. It also allows you to amplify the excitement or concern, which is extremely valuable information. So for example, right, imagine you ask a prospect, why are you interested in scaling your business to 50K a month? And they tell you that they want to retire and buy a boat and sail the world. Most salespeople would probably say something like, oh, cool. So what do you feel is the biggest thing standing between you and 50K? Honestly, like, pardon my French, but fuck that. Imagine if your best friend told you that, or your parents or your kids told you they want to buy a boat, right, to travel across the world. Your excitement level will be through the roof. But as salespeople, it's like, oh yeah, that's cool, whatever, right? On to the next thing, because I only have 45 minutes here, right? And the sales trainer gives me a reward and makes me feel good if I close in 20 minutes, right? Somehow, like, this reward that, like, oh, I closed you in less time. That's amazing. I don't care about how long it takes. I want to make sure that there's 100% certainty and that I create an experience, right? So I'm side noting hard in that example into the boat. That is a big deal. The key to a good side note is a genuine blend of curiosity and either enthusiasm or concern, depending on the topic, of course. If someone says, I broke my leg and that put me out for 6 months, I'm not going to be like, wow, that's amazing, right? And so I want to pick the either enthusiasm and concern and mix that with a blend of curiosity. In this case, it's obviously enthusiasm. I'm going to be like, no way, that's so cool. Do you know what kind of boat that you're looking for? And then as I draw out information, again, this is something they're excited about. So all of a sudden you're going to see them peak up. And people love to educate other people that are interested in something they're interested in. So the idea is, luckily, I'm stupid about boats. I don't know anything, but that's what I'm going to use, right? Too many salespeople are trying to be know-it-alls when really, like, every sales call, I want the prospect to teach me something that I don't know. So I'm going to be like, honestly, I don't know too much about boats, but I've always wanted to learn. Have you sailed a lot before in the past, or is this just something that you want to learn down the road, right? And I'm going to go off on the side note, and you might be like, well, why is that important? right? It's so important, right? So I'm going to keep that going. Like, where would you go first? I heard the Mediterranean is a pretty amazing spot, right? And then once I get enough information, once I get a depth, once I get them excited and they kind of pull off the restrictions of the conversation, they open up to me. Now I can get back on track by using a segue, right? And so I might say something like, oh, well, I mean, I could bug you asking you about sales all day. It's just such an amazing vision. I'm curious. When are you wanting to start that journey? If you go back into talking about the person's goals as 50K instead of the destination of sailing, you are missing out totally. I'm not even going to mention the 50K anymore. I'm only talking, when we're talking about goals and vision, I'm only talking about boats, right? So I'm going to transition. Say, oh, wow, I wouldn't be able to sleep once they tell me, I want to do it in 10 years or 5 years. I'm like, oh my God, I wouldn't even be able to sleep. How did you decide on that date? Is it just about like the finances, or is there a reason you picked that date? Right? I want to find out how much the boat costs. I want to know why they're putting it off. And so all of a sudden, I'm drawing out the information about the boat because that's really what's motivating them. It's not the 50K, it's not the agency, right? I want them to know that they can actually hit that goal sooner, right? And so I might ask them a question, a transition question of, so I'm just curious, like if you reached your financial goal here faster than 2025, would you go sooner, or are you still actually wanting to put that off? Like if you could make, say, 60K or 100K next month, like would you still put that off for that long? Because sometimes, a lot of the times, they put off a dream or an idea because they're trying to be realistic, because they don't want to be let down, because they've been let down in the past. So we want to be able to amplify that and draw out the information. And the way to do that is mixing that blend of curiosity and enthusiasm, right? And so from here on out, right, I want everybody to develop that depth. I want people to get beyond a fucking rapport section. To me, a rapport section is a ridiculous concept anyway, right? But I want people to connect. I've been on 3 sales calls this week. Everybody asked me the same questions, and no one fucking connected any of my dreams or ideas or pains to what they were pitching. It's the same fucking questions. And then, that's great. Actually, based on what you've told me, I really think we can help. Here's what we do. What was the point of the questions? If they don't affect what you say, right? If you don't know why I want to make this much money or why I want to retire at 38, you've lost me because you don't care. Because you're asking me questions so I feel certain emotions so you can manipulate me, right? Or persuade me, if you want to call it that way, right? But remembering that rapport is built through genuine interest and connection throughout the call, right? Remember that the emotional pairing when you get stuck is just being genuinely curious and enthusiastic, or genuinely curious and concerned, right? You'll be amazed at how much deeper of a connection that you get and how much people are willing to tell you when you show interest in them. They will just unload, because most people go through their day, sadly, that no one cares. Everybody's so busy now, or distracted, or they're on their phone. Like, one of the best gifts that you can give someone is 45 minutes to an hour of undistracted, just attentiveness and interest and enthusiasm and concern. Right? It's just such a beautiful gift. And so I could rant on this forever. Obviously, I'm passionate about it. But lastly, the backtrack. Right. So I just did a transition. See how that works? Right. Natural. It's natural. I'm not playing it. It's real words, but it allows for that segue into the next thing I'm saying. So lastly, the backtrack. Right. This is something you just don't see newer salespeople do, because they're bloodthirsty and they're trained to respond. A lot of salespeople are trained to respond. They say this, you say that, right? And so there's a quickness, and then it seems unnatural because they're like, I just told you all this information, and without thinking, you just blurted out that, right? That's not how it naturally goes, right? We have to consider, we have to think, right? Most trainers tell you what to say and when to say it. But to master communication, you need to understand the why. Right? When you understand the why, then you can navigate even the most difficult conversations with more ease. So the backtrack is an amazing tool. When someone gives you a juicy nugget of information, instead of pouncing on it, instead of handling it, then continue the conversation. Take note of it. Write down the word that they used, right? Underline it. What I used to do is if they said a certain word and I felt like a weight to it, I would underline it, meaning that's a heavy word. There's some concern there. If they said a word and they lit up and there's excitement, I would write the word down and overline it. I would continue, right, and draw out more information or sidetrack or segue, right? I allow the floodgates and the continuation of information without cutting them off, right? Then I go back. Then I draw back, right? Lawyers do this a lot and it's really effective, right? Because they don't want to alert the person on the stand, the witness, that they found the information that they need to influence them, right? So very simple, I might say, Ted, you mentioned earlier, blank, or, you know, I'm thinking about something you mentioned a minute ago. I think it's really interesting. And then repeat what they said, right? Or when you said blank, what exactly did you mean? Another statement could be, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I just want to take a quick step back. I think it's really important what you said about this, right? All of a sudden, not only have you drawn up more information, it seems much more natural. It also shows the prospect that you're listening and that you identified that that was important to them. You don't know how amazing that is for the subconscious when they pick up on that. All of a sudden, the trust factor goes through the roof. Right? And so another example could be, I've noticed the topic of blank has come up a few times. Why is that important to you? Right? The key with an effective backtrack is to make note of important information and look for a good opportunity to transition back to draw out the depth of the information. Right? So now I know I'm throwing you a lot of information. I know I'm throwing a lot at you. And some of you might be feeling a natural desire for a framework, like tell me what to say or when to say it or how to say it. But that's how you guarantee to stay dependent on constant upsells of today's sales training, because they teach you how to create resistance and then you have to pay even more to remove it. And then they'll tell you it's a new way of selling. And in 6 months, 40,000 people will warn that to death. And then all of a sudden, amazingly enough, they have a new way. The newer way of selling will be the next thing. And then the newest way, and the newest way 3.0 and 5.0, right? If you want to be dependent, then keep learning what to say and when to say it. But if you want to master this craft, you have to be dedicated to understanding the why and learning how to navigate conversations, right? Now, if I could make one suggestion, and it's to be really explorative in your sales approach. Be patient and start to uncover the why underneath what you say. So for anybody paying attention, there was just 2 transitions there. Right? I put a segue to make the transition smoother. The first one, I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you. You may feel blank. Again, that's an amazing one because sometimes we forget. We've went through this script hundreds and hundreds of times. This is brand new for the prospect. So identifying that they might be overwhelmed with what you're throwing at them and giving them an opportunity to express how they feel and address concerns is so huge. And then also the if I could make a suggestion. If I could make a suggestion is a great opportunity so that you don't tell them something, you offer them the gift. Right? So honestly, when you take the time to understand humans and you dedicate yourself to mastering the craft of communication, not only will you have better sales results, but honestly, your whole life will improve. Your relationships, your friendships, all areas of human interaction. Then you won't have to learn about, okay, this is a setter job, or this is a closer job, or this is an interview, or this is networking, or this is dating. It's all human interaction, right? And so one last tip before I leave, right? I call it the $6 gold. I really, honestly, I know it's against what most people think, but I don't really do a lot of role plays. And when I say I don't really do a lot, I hardly do any ever. I think I can probably count the number of role plays I've done on two hands and maybe a foot, right, over 17 years. I just don't find them that effective. I think, and also efficient. I just don't think they're a great use of time most of the time. Right? For me, the thing that has improved my sales the most is transcriptions of my calls. So once a week, especially when I started out, once a week for a couple of years, I would pick one or two calls and I would get them transcribed. You can usually online get transcriptions done for about $6 an hour. If you just Google online transcriptions, or maybe if someone knows a good transcription service, you can put it in the comments section. But getting the transcriptions is so huge because honestly, what you think you're saying and what you're actually saying are really different. And so I've found by just having that piece of paper when I'm going through and listening to a call, I start to see like, oh, I really have a lot of filler words, or oh, it's a really clunky transition there, or I thought I was saying this, but I really have to use stronger language here. So you're going to be able to identify, especially the opportunities for more powerful language, right? The two things that I would look for when you're listening and you're also looking, and it also helps people that aren't auditory learners. If you're a visual learner or you're more of a feeler, this will definitely help. So listen for two things. One, the emotional tone of the prospect. So if you have a highlighter or something, like go through and underline the heavy words of like, oh, I should have dug on that. Or if they say something with enthusiasm, right? Like, oh, I should have expanded there. Put an overline, right? You'll start to see. The other thing is, where are the opportunities for smoother transitions? Where was it a little bit clunky? Where was there an awkward pause? Where did the kind of temperature of the prospect change and why? And if you do this a couple times a week for 6, 8 weeks, you'll notice such a huge difference. And then what you'll have is the best of both worlds. Because I'm not against having a script, but what I want is something I can actually use. So instead of having a script where there's no human interaction, it doesn't start off, it's just very written, right? I can use my transcription and I can build a framework off that, which is what I actually say, right? So last thing, after this call, I'll create a resource with some of the examples that you can use for transition statements and questions that you can use. But I want you to use your own. I want you to experiment. I want you to notice transitions in normal conversations and think about how you can bring those into your sales call. So if you want that resource, when I'm done creating it, give me like in 24 hours or so, type #smooth into the comment section. So I know we went a little bit long. I hope this was super valuable for you. Let me know in the comments section if you have any questions. I appreciate you all so much. Have a great day.